Hello and welcome to the Tuesday, March 18th Haldane Board of Education workshop meeting. I'm calling the meeting to order. We have a packed house. That's very exciting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
President Clemens,
Here.
Vice President Valentine,
Here.
Trustee Clemenson,
Here.
Trustee Cupper,
Here.
Trustee McNow.
Here.
Okay, I don't believe we have any changes to the agenda, so may we have the recommended action to approve the agenda?
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the interim superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the agenda as written.
May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. I'm going to keep my comments super brief. We have a packed agenda tonight. So two quick things. The first is that the Haldane Board of Education will conduct a business meeting, our next meeting on Tuesday, April 1st at 7 p.m. here in the middle school, high school libraries. And the second is that there are 2 Board of Education trustee positions up for election this spring. Petitions for anybody who's interested in running are available in the district office or by contacting our district clerk. Those are due with the signatures and the first campaign expenditure statement no later than 3 p.m. on Monday, April 21st. If anybody is interested in running for the board, as always, please reach out to one of us on the board. We're always happy to answer people's questions and actually also point you to where you can find information about running for school board in New York State. All right, Mr. Albano.
Sure. I have a few brief updates. Since our last meeting, there's been some progress up at New York State with the state budget. So on March 11th, the Senate and Assembly released their one-house budget proposals. I know the board has been following this story, but I thought for our community, and it's related to our budget presentation later, there are some interesting highlights that I think pertain to Haldane or may have an impact on Haldane. First, the governor proposed a 2% foundation aid increase, but I think it's worth mentioning the Assembly is counter-proposing a 2.9. The Senate is looking for a 3%. So that could mean the difference of about $30,000 more in foundation aid for our district if the Assembly or state's proposal was accepted. We've talked a lot about smartphone bans. The governor did propose a bell-to-bell smartphone ban. There was a lot of pushback on that. I think the consensus across at least the region, and if not the state, is that cell phones should really be left up to districts to decide their policy. For example, here at Haldane, we do believe we have a very effective policy. They are not allowed during class time, during instructional time. However, students are able to use their cell phones on a free period or lunch, or in the case of an open campus, of course, they can have their phones with them. So there's been some advocacy, and it seems like our representatives at the Assembly and Senate level have really been responsive. So they are proposing a modified version of the governor's plan that she rolled out. So we will find out more probably within a month. Also, access to school meals. There is full support for that. So we are pleased about having breakfast and lunch available for students. Dual enrollment is at the high school level. Mrs. Sniffen understands the courses we offer. Oftentimes, the advanced courses could receive college credit. So there is some funding for that for families that may need assistance. And then our students could receive college credit here at our high school. So that's a real positive thing. Universal pre-K. The first time we're here in our district, we are launching a pre-K in the fall. So that's really exciting. There is a $5,400 state aid that the district would receive for each student. It's $5,400 per student for a maximum of 18 students. That $5,400 amount has been in place for at least 12, maybe 13 years. So there's been a lot of advocacy to increase it. The Senate and I'm pleased to see this, has proposed 6,700. The Assembly is proposing 10,000 per student. So that could be a significant difference in aid. So our timing is really good here, and we're going to remain hopeful that maybe there's an increase this year. Good news too, Ms. Jamin told me we are up to 17 registered.
Oh my God, that's
So
so
we
exciting.
only have one seat left, and it does close at the end of March, right?
That's great.
So it looks like we may have a full class. Zero emission buses. The Senate is advocating for an extension. There have been some challenges, especially with pricing and affordability. Good news, the EPA still intends to award $965 million as of a few hours ago. I visited their website. That funding still seems to be available. We will find out by May whether or not our application is approved, but we do have an application in for electric buses. This all hopefully will be resolved by April 1st. That's always the state's goal. Sometimes they go over. This year, I think there's a lot of agreement on a lot of the major issues. So I do think we will see a state budget by April 1st. We'll keep the board and community informed. Quick capital project update. We're excited. We have completed our schematic design phase. We just received a 170-page report this afternoon. We're starting to review it, but it's very exciting. In 2 weeks, we'll be looking at a preliminary budget, moving on to the next phase, which is design development. It's a lot more detailed. And then we have our architect, CS Arch, will be here to present to the board on April 22nd. And we have a number of community members who have been very interested in giving us input along the way. We will make sure we reach out and invite them as well. I think it'll be a good opportunity to update the board as well as the community.
And you plan to share the schematic designs with the board sooner rather than,
Yes.
I'm remembering that, right? Because I think most people haven't had a chance to see the evolution of some of the stuff, some of the designs, and I think people would be interested in seeing.
Yes, yes.
Great, thank
It could be your weekend reading this weekend, 170 pages of schematic design. No, it is exciting. I want to say on the board agenda, I'm sure you've seen this, but Ms. Sniffen and I are recommending that the Haldane Outlook, we've had two it's a pilot program right now. I just want to give a shout out to Kiera Shanahan and Lincoln Whalen. They're the editors. There's a whole group of students that are really engaged and supporting this, but the first two publications were really outstanding for the first time out. And Ms. Sniffen and I met with our parent volunteers, and a shout out to Jen Zarwich and John Whalen. They have really been working with the students, but we think it's time to make this publication something more permanent, supported by the district. So Mrs. Sniffen has on the agenda this evening is recommending an additional advisor to support that. We do have some money in the budget for next year. Also, thank you to the foundation who really gave the seed money for the publication. So it's been a tremendous success, and it is proposed tonight for the board's approval to make it a permanent extracurricular activity here at Haldane. Lastly, Stephen Sondheim's Into the Woods is this weekend, and Mrs. Sniffen just sent a little preview for me to watch before the meeting, and it's very exciting. I'm reminded of the amazing music and lyrics associated with the play. So if you can, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday matinee, please come out and support the students. That's all.
I have to make a reminder to buy tickets. All right. We thank you so much.
Sure.
We have two special presentations, and the first one is about the Butterfield Library proposition that will be part of the annual district meeting vote. So if you want to come up and do your presentation, we're going to ask you to come to the right here. Okay.
And there's a clicker.
There's a what?
Clicker.
Clicker. I didn't even. It blended right in. I don't know if you need these. We do have,
Printed them, so you should get them.
That's right, you brought them.
I actually, yes, people worked very hard to get these signatures. So I don't know, not required, but it is our ballot.
Or district clerk.
All right, so I'm gonna assume that these two. Well, first of all, thank you for your time. I appreciate you having us here. We really actually board, I speak for myself and the board. I have 3 board members here with us tonight. We worked really hard to not have to be here for the past few years. In fact, the last time was 10 years ago that we put a proposition on the school budget. So reality has set in. A few factors at play, which I indicated in our presentation, but I won't go through everything in detail. You all can look at that yourselves. I don't want to take too much of your time. But one of the most important things is actually this year is the library's 100th anniversary. And with 100 years comes a lot of issues. As we know, building looks pretty good for its age, but there's a lot of things that structurally and staffing wise, service wise, that we need to address. So one of the things that we always find interesting is the question always being asked, who uses libraries anymore? Well, it's just, few of the people in our community who use our library every day. And I know actually almost all of you here are big library users, so thank you for that. But we do a lot of work in the community that I think not everyone is always aware of. They think it's just a place for books. It certainly is a lot more than that. Some of our statistics, we have 3,000 plus cardholders. My percentage there is the registered school voters. So that shows that almost, a large percentage of the people who are voting have at least one card per household. Many people have multiple people in their household using the library, but just one card. So numbers actually probably a lot bigger than that. So in total, we have over 50,000 items circulated, which shows that we're still getting that's a big number. One thing to highlight there that plays into the costs that we're facing now is that our electronic materials has skyrocketed. So that number reflects where we were in 2015. We had 2,000 plus materials borrowed. This includes audiobooks, ebooks, videos that you stream. Now we have 20,000. So that's an 800% increase, which is a big cost. We also can look at the minimum wage, which was $9 in 2015 and will be $16 in 2026, which is almost an 80% increase. And that means that all of our salaries will have to increase proportionally with that. We have a lot of staff members who have been with us for a long time. Ebooks our cost now is about $8,000, which is a 200% increase over just last year. And that is because we are now required to pay for our share of our patrons' ebook use in our library system. So that means we are responsible for a lot more, and we can no longer wiggle out of that. We have to, pay to play, as they say. Insurance costs, these are all things we all know. Everything has just increased so much more. I don't know if you can really see these pictures, don't necessarily show it in its true glory, but that's our ceiling, which has, as I think some of our board members can attest to, started out like this and is now, that runs the entire length of the building, the one on the lower left there. We also need to address our ADA issues, which we have received some funding for that, but it doesn't, unfortunately, will not cover the breadth of what we need to do. As you all know, our building is a historic building. We have amazingly beautiful heavy wood doors, which one of the stumbling blocks to getting those ADA compliant was putting door openers on those doors. That is going to be a huge cost, and we're hoping to be able to retain our historic doors. Those doors also now have lots of gaps, which lets lots of stuff in. So we need to address that. So if you ever want to just stop by and take a look at our crack, you're welcome to do that. But yeah, moving on. So the library board is proposing a $25,000 increase. So that would bring the total tax levy to $98,150. Again, we've not requested an increase for 10 years. We were really hoping to not have to do this. We managed to get by. We do passport acceptance, and so we do get a fee for that from the state. However, actually that's a federal fund ultimately. But because another library in the area will soon be doing that, we get about 90% of our applicants come from Beacon. They'll soon be doing the same service, which means that will bring down the amount that we make. And that's a big factor as to why we haven't had to ask for an increase. We've been able to use that funding for a lot of things. And this amount, we're trying to be very conscious of the economic realities that everybody is facing now. We've for all these years, we've said, this is not a good time. This is not a good time. Well, this is not a good time, but we really need to do this. This amount reflects approximately, if you averaged it over, if we had gone out for a budget proposition every year for the past 10 years, the ATL is approximately, like this year, it's 3.38%. This would equal about what it would have been over those past 10 years. Many libraries do that, where every year they ask for their, recommended increase, and we, again, try not to have to do that. So this is what it reflects based on the number of voters. So it would be, an approximately $5 to $12 increase for the year. So it's, again, a very small amount, yet it is, again, significant. We are very aware that it is still significant for many. This is what it would amount to. That $25,000 that would go very far for the library. Ooh, did I just turn it off? Oh,
That's what you call a mic drop.
yeah, right. Well, I could be done, because that's essentially it. Really. Okay, thank you. I don't know what I did. Maybe I should not be trusted with one of these. So the $25,000 will go for part-time tech help. We also, throughout the years, we've had people come and go to do maintenance for us, but right now, maintenance here, and as you saw from some of the pictures, I am certainly not capable of that, but we literally have, we do not have a handyman. We don't have any type of maintenance for the big jobs. We do have a fabulous person who comes once a week to clean the building, but that's all we have. We also will need funds to keep pace with the very large increase we're seeing in the minimum wage. It will also go for these books that our patrons want now that they are requesting more and more ebooks, and these are two of our popular e-material platforms, Canopy and Hoopla, which Butterfield Library, proud to say we have like one of the largest circulations of these platforms, but that also means it's a lot more money because we pay per item, and I don't think people are really aware of that, and it's very hard to budget for. So if some of you who may be users know, we've brought down the amount you're allowed to borrow as the budget as the usage grows, because we haven't been able to keep up with the cost, and we'd like to continue to expand the access to audiobooks. If we don't get the increase, one of the things that we might have to do is cut our hours. We are currently open 7 days a week. We're open 2 evenings. There's very few places that can say that. And we might have to cut evening and Sunday hours as just a start. The other thing is programs. We might have to eliminate or charge for programs. We currently do not charge for any of our programs. Never have. And the only things that you might see a charge for is something like defensive driving, which goes directly to the instructor. But in terms of what the library puts on, we don't charge for anything. That includes our week of summer camp that we have done historically for the past, well, probably 15 plus years. We might have to eliminate that. We also have just an example, we do chair yoga. We would start having to charge for programs like that. Also, we'd have to further reduce or even eliminate Hoopla Canopy. And importantly, further defer our interior and exterior needs, which, as we know, just means costs will keep accumulating. This is a copy of our budget, which is available also on our website and at the library and in this presentation, if you would like to see it in more detail. We plan to have Q&A sessions, 3 separate ones, one on the weekend, one in the evening, and one during the daytime, to try to have time for everybody to come and ask us any questions when they have. And that is me. Now I can do the mic drop. I don't know. Should I turn it off or leave it?
You can leave it.
Joanna, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shall I sit or stay?
Why don't you just stay for a second to see, but I just to make sure that we're clear, the way that New York State does this is when libraries want to have these kinds of levies, they appear on this annual school district budget vote, but they're not school district taxes. And it's something, listen, I'm one of the people that started reading voraciously during COVID. I'm one of your biggest ebook users, so I can speak from personal experience how much has gone up. A lot of it could be actually. So I do know, and I mean, it is a tremendous resource. So it's not to say that this isn't a really important use of community funds, but it is in the school district's best interest to really clarify that these aren't that piece of what people are going to vote on that particular proposition on May 20th. Those funds go to the library. They don't come to the school district. And the way that New York State does it, this is just how those.
Absolutely, that's how it, you're basically our facility.
We are, yes. But anyway, that was a really helpful presentation. I learned a lot. Do other people have any questions, or even people from the public, since this is a community issue?
Well, I mean, it's difficult to overstate the amount of use that the library gets in my house. My son doesn't do many things, but he does read like nobody's business.
Yes.
And there isn't a time where I don't see people availing of all the services, multi-generational and all. I really appreciate you giving us this.
Yeah, good luck.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time.
All right. No, it's all good. Yeah, it's actually me. I don't know. Gail, do you want to wait until I do my little spiel so you don't have to stand here the whole time?
Maybe stand off to the sides.
Okay, why don't you do that? All right. So after a thorough and months-long search project, later in our meeting tonight, the Board of Education is going to appoint Dr. Gail Duffy to be Haldane's new superintendent, and she will start on July 1st. So I'm just going to say a couple of minutes worth of things. 29 educators applied for the position, and the group included a number of sitting superintendents and assistant superintendents. Throughout the process, the board was focused on identifying an experienced, smart leader who is committed to supporting all aspects of educating students, as well as supporting our valuable staff and educators. Someone who values the importance of continuous improvement and reflection, and someone who was really excited about coming and being part of our very special Haldane community, because it means so much to us. Over her 29-year career, I hope I got the math right, Dr. Duffy has moved through just so many of the really critically important roles of the people who serve students in districts. She started as a special education and general education teacher, then became an assistant principal and principal, then director and superintendent. One of my responsibilities in this process was to speak with Dr. Duffy's references, which I'll be honest was really a pretty delightful experience. The people I spoke to had so many positive things to say about her and her ability to lead. They described her as a lifelong learner who is trusted and respected by those she works with, a deeply compassionate leader who's also able to make and implement tough decisions when needed, but will do so with grace and honesty and in partnership with others. A strong advocate for teachers. I have permission to say this one. Dr. Duffy's references was a former union leader from one of her previous districts, and that woman really had a lot of things she wanted to tell me, Gail. So she's a strong advocate for teachers. She's someone who celebrates successes, but also strives for continued improvement, someone who can do the work to make a good system even greater. So in Dr. Duffy, the board feels like we've identified someone who is compassionate, highly respected, and passionate about public education. And we're excited to introduce her to the community.
thing to stand up and hear so many nice things about myself, but thank you. And thank you all for being here tonight. I did prepare some remarks. I'm much more informal, but a little more formal tonight. So I'll just get started. So good evening. I stand before you tonight deeply honored and humbled as the next superintendent of schools for the Haldane Central School District. And my heart is full of gratitude. First, to the Board of Education and to Megan, to the administration team that I had a chance to meet, and to Lynn Allen and Neil Boyle from Putnam, Northern Westchester BOCES for the really beautiful, warm welcome and the really thoughtful process. I really felt from the beginning until now, I've gotten to know so many people in the community. And that's important to me because as much as you're interviewing me, I'm interviewing all of you in a good way. And it feels like the right fit. So I'm really just so grateful. And most importantly to my children, Owen and Abigail, you are my constant inspiration. And thank you both for being here tonight. Okay, so my educational journey has been really enriched by every school community I've had the privilege to serve. And I'm thrilled that it's led me here to Haldane. I'm eager to immerse myself in this very special community to learn and grow alongside all of you. I grew up in Yorktown. My family visited Cold Spring often. And then as a young adult, I also did a lot of the hikes, visited Boscobel, love Main Street. And it feels like too good to be true to be here tonight with all of you. So as you've heard, I've served as a teacher, both elementary and special education. I've also been an assistant coordinator of special education, an assistant principal and principal in elementary schools, director of curriculum, and an assistant superintendent for instruction and human resources. And in each of these positions, titles are titles. What really matters is the work. And so to me, I've learned the importance of building strong relationships, having open communication, being an active listener, especially in tough times, and supporting the social emotional learning and wellness of not only students, but our staff and our school community. And that's everything I'm hoping to bring here to Haldane. I'm especially excited. I heard you're doing a capital project, perhaps. I'm really excited to be part of that work and also to be part of the ongoing work of Haldane Essentials, the core values, and your strategic plan. I aim to lead with an authentic heart where all of the needs of our students will be prioritized and understood. Over the coming months, I plan to spend time in the district to get to know staff and students and the community so that when I officially begin in July, ready to join you as a true Blue Devil. And thank you again for this incredible opportunity. Thank you. Thank you.
So while Dr. Duffy is making the rest of her rounds, I too want to thank again the community members who participated in the focus groups and the survey. I know all of us referred to those materials multiple times, and you know, definitely to Lynn Allen and Neil Boyle from Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES. They were very supportive to me. I think in particular, it felt like a big and important task to undertake, but they supported the whole board well. Thanks very much to the board members, and also thanks again to the administrative team who participated in the last phase. It really was a community effort, so thanks. And we got to see a lot of each other. All right. All right. And thank you so much for your kind words. You're welcome. All right, so now we have another, not a special presentation, but a presentation from our student advisors, so Zora Kapoor and Giovannina Manfredi. Would you please come and do your presentation?
Hi, my name is Zora. I'm the senior class treasurer, and I'm Giovannina Manfredi, and I'm the student body vice president. So the Haldane Drama Club has been working hard to prepare for their production of Into the Woods. The performances are this weekend at 7 p.m. on Friday, March 21st, and Saturday, March 22nd, and 2 p.m. on Sunday, March 23rd. Into the Woods is a Stephen Sondheim musical, meaning learning the music has been more difficult than some past productions, but the cast has embraced this challenge. You can expect to see intricate sets and beautiful costumes, along with your favorite fairy tale characters. Due to a high turnout for the audition process, a new bonus show has been added this year for the understudy cast. They will perform the first act on Thursday, March 20th at 3:30 p.m. This has been a great way for more students to have opportunity to stay involved in the drama program and play a larger role, and make sure to come see Into the Woods. Students in AP Spanish and AP French will begin applying to be awarded the Seal of Biliteracy in Spanish and French. In order to apply for the Seal of Biliteracy, students must find a topic of interest that interests them and can be studied in the context of Spanish and French culture. They will make a presentation in either Spanish or French that explains their topic and includes references to literary texts, articles, and an audio recording. A panel will hear the students' presentations to judge if they have met the criteria. Candidates for the Seal of Biliteracy must show proficiency in speaking a foreign language and using it to understand and convey concepts and ideas. This is a great opportunity for students to display their achievements in their foreign language and dive deeper into the culture that goes along with it.
Juniors will embark on their trip to Washington, D.C. on March 24th and will be arriving back in Cold Spring on March 27th. Students will learn about deep culture throughout the trip and experience interactive learning. Students will be divided into groups of 8 people. Groups will spend most of the trip together and will be paired with an adult supervisor. Students will have opportunities to participate in optional activities during the trip. For example, there will be a wreath-laying ceremony, which is a tribute to the men and women who have lost their lives for our country. This trip provides students with an active, fun, and safe environment away from home where they can gain more knowledge about our nation. In addition to the juniors attending their class trip, the sophomores will also be making their journey to the Bronx Zoo on March 27th. Students will have the chance to learn about different animals and observe them in their natural habitat. They will be allowed to explore the zoo safely with a supervisor. In addition, teachers and parents will be attending the trip to provide the safest environment for these students. Ultimately, students will have a new sense of freedom as they get to choose their activities for the day. As high schoolers progress in their journey, they can gain freedom and opportunities on class trips. It is crucial to recognize the value of freedom students will be provided with throughout both the sophomore and junior class trips.
You taking questions?
Yeah.
Thank you for that presentation. Are either of you going for your Seal of Biliteracy?
I am this year for French, yeah.
Okay, I was wondering, how's your experience been so far? And like, how do you pick your topic? Do you get like supervision throughout that process?
Madam Hopkins been really great about it. We've had each quarter we've completed one like mock presentation kind of, and it's really allowed me to like get the criticism on how I view the topics and everything. We're given like a list of AP themes and contexts that we can choose from, and I think that's really great because I can choose what I care about, and I can pursue that in French. And it's super cool to learn about things that we don't actually learn in the classroom if it like applies to a certain thing that I'm interested in. For example, like I did a presentation on beauty and fashion, and I did a different one on environmental studies, so that was super nice.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
And what years, I'm sorry, I forgot.
I'm a senior.
And I'm a junior.
So you're going to,
DC,
oh,
yeah.
good, that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Okay. Anybody else? Any questions? Thank you. Thank you both so much.
you.
We really
Thank you.
appreciate it. And you all are welcome to stay, but don't feel compelled to stay because we know you're busy.
Okay.
So you're welcome to stay. There's no pressure.
Where you going?
Oh, actually, we can listen to it. Yeah, there is Miss Sniffen. That would be one thing. So.
Boy, they sat right away, right? Look at that principal.
So, right, so the next item on our agenda is our workshop topic for this evening, which is the school and athletics visit summary and detail report.
So, thank you. Obviously, this is just the high school overview for the school year. There were a lot of topics to think about this year and a lot of things that are going on. And so I reached out this year to the Board of Ed to say, what do you want to hear about? Like, I can talk about a lot of things. And these were the different items that I brought forward to the board. So my own goals as the principal, potentially diving deeper into some of the data that wasn't presented during Josh's report on Regents exams, the proposed changes in graduation requirements that we're starting to hear more and more about, some of our department focuses, courses, course sequence, building a master schedule, which oftentimes for people, they don't really know the ins and outs that go into that. Talking more about the seal by literacy or civic readiness, or potentially an update on some of the clubs and interest groups that are going on. So I took all your feedback and I was able to bring it to 3 areas. But if you've noticed, there are some of those other topics are woven within many discussions that are happening tonight, including some of the things that the students have shared. So tonight what I'm going to do is going to talk about the principal's goals and their impact on the building and where that stands and what work we're continuing with. I'm going to talk about the shift in proposed graduation requirements that the Blue Ribbon Commission has stated as a branch of the Board of Regents. And then I'm going to talk about the work that our department chairs have done with their different departments. So in terms of my goal, the first goal related to curriculum, the summer work this year really did focus on writing curriculum, but through a lens of UDL. And I must say, in reviewing and looking at the summer curriculum work that came back from all of the faculty, that definitely was embedded, that UDL lens through the curriculum writing. The core class unit overview maps, most of them are now completed on the shared drive to be able to see. We are continuing with our UDL book study during faculty meetings. We actually are only through 3 chapters right now, but we're not going to read the book in entirety. There are a few chapters that Dr. Silky and I spoke about that we don't think are as essential for us to do because we did do some preliminary work last year around UDL. Science curriculum in alignment with next gen standards. I know Mr. Panella isn't here now, but he's been doing a lot of work in that area as well. And then explore other elective courses that might be options moving forward. In terms of data, this year, all of our department chairs have now level 1 access to state data and data reports. We were able to secure some planning time and looking at NWEA data. And depending on the department, it depends on how much time they've been able to spend looking at NWEA. So for example, math has definitely spent a little bit more time looking at the data, and maybe it's just because they're data heads and they're math people. But the way things have rolled out this year, they've been able to take a little bit more time in that area. We have been able to review individual student progress and put into place some high leverage practices. This we're rolling out right now. Thanks to Regina and some federal funding, we were looking at ways in which we can address some of the needs of our students that struggle with standardized assessments, knowing that obviously that impacts graduation, and what are some high level practices that we can put in place. So together, the teachers have identified students that could really benefit from these supports. And we're going to take some of that federal funding to provide some tutoring for students specific to Regents coursework. In addition, we've expanded the continuum at the high school this year. So again, you don't work in isolation, right? That's obviously a project together with Regina we've been working on. And my third goal is the focus and the work on the whole child. So this year, I believe at one point I have mentioned this, but unfortunately, we needed to make sure that we had a grief group for the children at the high school. And it was important that that grief group not be on campus, but that grief group be off campus. And we've been able to work with the hub to provide that support. So they meet once a month, and we've been able to connect families with that resource. The JCK Foundation came back again this year. They focused their work in 9th grade, And we continue our county-wide collaboration with Sydney, which is the distracted driving program for our seniors, teen and kids programming, which is peer mentoring. Our students take part in the youth forum, which is coming up in April, in addition to have many students this year that are involved in the youth court in the area. Our Nancy Martinez, who is here, and Jackie McGrath led the Anxious Generation book read. And we're now taking that book read to the PTA and hoping that we can have a group of parents interested in reading that as well. It really was all about what I did wrong in parenting. With my son, not my daughter. Just tried.
That's why you have two.
That's why, exactly. The other in regards to the whole child, this is just a continuation. A lot of interest groups really have sparked up this year. And we have a science interest group, which Mr. Posniak has been overseeing, and they were actually quarterfinalists in our first ever Science Bowl down at Manhattan College this year. We have a knitting interest group. This Saturday, they were at the shop in town, which was also a fundraiser for the food pantry, and they were down there knitting. And Michelle Cordero oversees that. Amnesty International Interest Group, which has been Jackie McGrath overseas, and they've been doing some work on asylum seeking. DECA, which is an interest group, and I can't remember who stepped up. That's on marketing. It's marketing, business, design, graphics, students doing that. And then one thing that is still continuous that we have not gotten to yet is documenting some of the SEL work that ubiquitously is within the curriculum. So within the literature we read, within the social studies content, looking at where those SEL standards tie in and documenting that. So as we turn to the Blue Ribbon Commission under the Board of Regents, there is a lot of work that has happened over the last couple of years in regards to gathering information from different stakeholders and what is important for a student in regards to graduation and what does that look like? Is it still passing 5 Regents exams? Or are there other things to look at? And we've already seen different changes happen. We know we have 2 seals, right? We have the seal of biliteracy, we have the seal of civic readiness. There are CTE conversations happening. We've been working on our STEAM programming. We know we're building a new STEAM lab. What does that look like? So some of this work, as I talk through it, you're like, but we're doing some of this. Yes, we are doing some of this. Some of this obviously intentional work because we are also following what's happening at the state level. So the transformations that the Blue Ribbon Commission are recommending fall into 4 categories. Adoption of a portrait of a graduate. And to me, when I think about that, I think about the Haldane. And a lot of the feedback that the state has gotten fall into those categories that we have identified as important to us, as in the Haldane Essentials. Redefining credit. When I think of this, there's a lot of conversation around voice and choice, and I'll go a little bit more in depth as I get to the next slides. Transformation 3 is the sunset diploma assessment requirements, which would be referring to the Regents exams. Doesn't mean we won't be giving Regents exams, but sunsetting that would be a must to graduate from high school. And then transformation 4 is moving to 1 diploma type. None of this has been approved yet. So it's really important that you're hearing this from the presentation that came from the Blue Ribbon Commission, but they have not yet, the Board of Regents has not yet approved this. There's only 1 piece that has gotten approved so far. So transformation 1 is what I kind of said before. Here, they're looking at what are the portraits and the skills and the knowledge that we want to see in our graduates. And those were the top 6 that have come out right now. And when you look at them, you can see some alignment with our essentials and the things that we're already looking to embed and working on embedding in our curriculum and in the work in our classrooms. So do I see a huge shift if this is adopted? Not huge, only that we may need to assess it. And how do you assess it? So New York State, when we get to the timeline, you'll see some of the things they're working on. Transformation 2, redefining credits. And I had mentioned this, I look at this one as a little bit more of the choice, that students would have more choice in what it is that they're seeking to do. So work-based service hours, or maybe senior internship. Dual credit programming that came up tonight already. The SEALs, we already offer the 2 SEALs. We know there's the option of a SEAL in art, and we're hearing of a SEAL in STEAM. So those 2 we don't have yet. We could work towards a SEAL in art, but the STEAM one is not yet defined. Traditional courses, CTE, the career and tech programming, which we often defer to BOCES for that programming. So that is something that would be in transformation 2 that we would be talking about. And then also there are obviously Regents exams are not going to totally go away. Transformation 3 is sunsetting what you see on the top. So what you see on the top is the current graduation requirement. The first circle is the 22 credits, which all students need to graduate from high school. You then have the English Regents, the Math Regents, a Science Regents, the Social Studies Regents, and then a pathway. Most high school students, the pathway is another Regents exam because they take multiple exams. They may take 2 maths, they take 2 social studies, 2 sciences, 3 sciences, right? So most of our students, their pathway is another Regents exam. Some students do use their BOCES programming. Some students could use the seal of civic readiness as their additional pathway. We currently do have what's called non-diplomas, which is the Career Development Occupational Studies Commencement Credential. And those students do go to BOCES, and that would declare them ready for work post high school. It's not considered a graduation high school diploma. It's considered a credential. 2 things that they have already put out there in terms of curricular things that they're focusing on is financial literacy and climate literacy. We do offer courses in financial literacy. I think our board members who visited actually saw one of those classes, and I'm not sure if you went into environmental, because I think that's an afternoon class, and you were there in the morning, so you didn't see that. So those are 2 that have already been spoken about. Sure. Moving to 1 diploma type. The next slide gets to timeline, so they're not doing all of this at once. You'll see how there's a gradual progression of this happening. But New York State, every high school has a different diploma, a different transcript, and they all look different. So what this is there will be 1 diploma, a high school diploma, as opposed to what we have now, which is a Regents diploma or a Regents diploma with advanced designation. But we'll go to 1 diploma. There will be multiple SEALs if this is approved. So multiple options for advanced designation. We've talked about the SEALs, and then there will be 1 state transcript. That's what's being proposed. This is the timeline. And so you'll see this current school year, they still have not finalized the portrait of a graduate. So 24-25 was to finalize the portrait of a graduate. They're still working on it. Just last week on March 11th, this was approved. The exemption for diploma assessment requirements for major life events. So we just learned last week that if there is a major life event or a major crisis in a student's life, and it's days before a Regents exam, they can be exempted from taking the Regents exam and still get the credit. We just learned that. This is the first time the teachers are probably hearing that. And then the 25-26 school year, the credit requirements, which will phase in 2027, So that would be our current sixth graders. It would phase in with, but at that point, Regents would not be a mandate for graduation. If this passes. And I'm gonna stop. You can read the rest through. It goes all the way to 29. 2029 is when we would have one transcript and one diploma type. So that's the progression. I'm gonna quickly go through these. I wish I could just call on my department chairs that are sitting here, because a lot of them are sitting here and they can share what they're doing, but it's right here. We talked already about the alignment in science. We are working with an outside consultant. Naomi Cook has been working with the science teachers, specifically earth science, biology, and then the teachers who teach 6 through 8. As Marianne mentioned in her presentation, we are looking to expand the offering of grade 8 biology, which would then allow greater access to upper science level classes at the high school. And the science department has been helpful in looking at enhancement in instructional practices that are related to technology. So this is like, what do we want in the STEAM room up at the high school? Mark and Gabe have been helpful in the work in that area. As it relates to math, again, we talked about data. One interesting thing that they're looking at is the impact that, you know, 3 through 8 is now all digital computer-based testing. And when you are taking a math assessment, how does computer-based testing impact the learner? And how are they showing what they know on a computer? So they've been doing some work in that area. The English department has done a deeper dive into AI, both from the teacher level and the student level. And we're also now, thanks to the English department, starting to track students' use of AI when it's not specifically stated. This is a project in which you can use AI. So some interesting data being collected there. The social studies department, last year we rolled out the seal of civic readiness. So they're reviewing that and making some tweaks, connecting the senior internship with the seal of civic readiness. And we are looking to propose a new course next year, which is the human geography and an elective in that. So you'll be hearing more about that. World language. The world language department has been looking at checkpoint A and checkpoint B. Checkpoint A is given at the end of year 1 or level 1. Checkpoint B is given at the end of level 3. Checkpoint A has made a decision to move their end of the year assessment to the Oneida Herkimer Madison BOCES, which has developed an assessment for checkpoint A. Checkpoint B is staying with the assessment that we have, which was developed by Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES quite a few years ago. We are getting some samples of the checkpoint B assessment from the Oneida BOCES, because the state did just say that if a student passes checkpoint B through an approved assessment, it can be one of their pathways or their +1. So just like the seal of biliteracy is a +1, now getting through checkpoint B could be a +1. They're planning their full day immersion, and they're in the middle of reviewing textbooks for their French courses. That was a lot. Question?
So informative.
I do have one. I hate to ask it.
Yeah.
Because that was a lot. You just said that checkpoint B and the seal of biliteracy would be both +1. Though it seems that the seal of biliteracy is traditionally for students who attain more than a level 3.
Yes.
And so, you know, can you stack seal? Is that like what we're doing here?
So yes. So
Okay.
on your diploma, right, which you get your seals at graduation.
Yeah.
So, you know, I always say to the juniors that are in world language, if they're continuing and they're going to take the AP course, that when they're applying to colleges, they can say a candidate for the seal of biliteracy.
Right.
They don't have it yet. They don't get it, that sticker,
Yeah.
until they're walking across the stage,
Right.
and they don't know if they received the seal of biliteracy until after their presentations, which take place the week before the AP exam.
Gotcha.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay. I think the timing of the capital project could not be more perfect, right? With this portrait of the graduate coming down the pike with this focus on STEAM and CTE. So I just want to highlight that. Really happy that that is working out. And thank you for putting together the group of students that Sean and I met with when we first got there. We had a really engaging conversation about AI in the classroom and how students are using it. And I found out that they tend to use it a lot more in their humanities classes than science and math. When they put in like a calculus question, it completely stumps AI, which I find fascinating. One thing that a lot of them said, they tend to use it mostly for developing their outlines when they're preparing a presentation or a piece of writing. And I think that's interesting. I also just want to say we should take a little caution with that, right? English teachers know that's a really important skill that kids should be learning, as part of coming up with what they're writing, to not have AI just be generating the outline for them. So I'm just, I was curious, I was interested to know that that is what most of them feel that they use it for. And I'm going to start using it.
Michelle, it's like you're not already used to it. It was really wonderful to spend some time with the students, and I had a sniffin that was one of my tour guides. Kelly, it was wonderful and open, asked a lot of questions of me, which I thought was very astute. And I did ask, since superintendents are on my mind, if they had a sense of what a superintendent did, and not surprisingly, no, they didn't really know. He seems to kind of move from one place to the other, kind of glide through. I don't know exactly what it is, but I will say that at least one asked if Superintendent Albano was a candidate, because they have really enjoyed having you here this year, and so that that's a wonderful indicator that we made two good choices at the end of the day. But I did have a question about the Regents exams and the distinction upon graduation between a seal versus what the add-on, I guess, impact of a Regents exam might mean to an outgoing graduate, now that they're no longer.
So first, let's remember it's not approved yet.
Right.
The federal government requires that there are standardized assessments given. And so I don't foresee them fully going away unless the federal government is going to make some changes, which that could very well happen. I think that, the Regents diploma, which it's not going to be a Regents diploma anymore. You're just going to have a high school diploma, and then you're going to have a seal.
Right.
And so I mean, 40 states do not have graduation assessment requirements like we do. So do I think it's going to make a huge difference? I don't. 40 states don't do it. If you're applying to internal New York State SUNY schools, that might make a difference within it. They did talk about rigor, right? And ensuring rigor while we're still doing this. It's not like we're going to throw out the Regents and it throws out rigor, right? You have to ensure that the curriculum is there, it's written, it's explicit. Our lessons are developed based upon those standards. And so I don't foresee the Regents being an end all be all anymore. I think knowing that the Regents isn't necessarily tied to the course can allow our teachers to be creative, to go deeper into areas that they believe the students need, more focus or attention on. It can allow our teachers to be creative in their lesson development, right? And I know our teachers aren't teaching tied to a test.
Right.
That's not what they're doing. But, come the end of the year, you want your students to do a practice test.
Right.
You want to make sure they have the ability to sit for that extended period of time. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, that does.
I think for New York State schools and colleges, it might have some impact, but beyond that, yeah. And we know that it's not gonna be on anybody's transcripts.
Right.
Which is a whole different conversation, which right now it is. And nobody loves that chemistry on there.
What is the relationship like, or the workflow like with the state when they make these? How are you finding things out? And in terms of the work, you're doing a lot of the work already. Some of the things that are going to or mutually exclusive, but in terms of when you find things out, is it stressful? I mean, is it a lot of changing that you'll have to do?
So I went to one of the first Blue Ribbon Commission conversations. And we were down at the Southern Westchester BOCES. And so you start to hear and you start to understand like what's happening around you based upon the questions they're asking you, right? So it's just like we do our portal to get feedback, right? They're asking like, give feedback, give feedback. They throw out these emails, we want feedback. And so when you see the questions they're asking, you can kind of gauge where things are going and what direction things are headed. You know, I think our work over the last few years and this work started a while ago. Like this isn't just like over this course of this year, like the gathering of information. I think it was pre-COVID, or was it right after COVID? Like 3 years, 4 years ago. So I am making sure I'm reading what's coming out from New York State. I'm reading the emails. I'm diving into when it says graduation requirements. I'm making sure like it's packed in there. And then obviously, you know, having Josh too, is great as, you know, back and forth, and Regina as it relates to some of the impacts on special ed. And so I think when we come back from our meetings, when I come back from my principals' meetings, you know, we're discussing it. We know it's going to impact us, and how it's going to impact us. We don't know exactly yet.
Your presentation, the fact that you had all these topics to choose from and we only chose a handful of them, and then your presentation was still so full of so much information, is a real reminder of just the breadth and depth of work, you know, that's happening in all of our schools. So I know we all really appreciated it. And it sounds like y'all had a great day.
Yes,
we did. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so now Mr. Cunningham will present the athletic, had a different name, yeah.
There you go. First of all, I want to say congratulations to Gail. Welcome aboard. And thank you to the board for the opportunity here just to do a quick presentation on athletics. I also included some phys ed, some health stuff. So we'll get going. Basically, you know, our vision statement, this is what we strive for in athletics, just to follow through on what we talked about a few years ago. I think last year we came together as an admin group to kind of talk about our vision statement. So just wanted to put that up there for us. Basically going to break it down tonight: fall, winter, spring. We don't have spring numbers, but I'll get to that in a few minutes. But basically what you're seeing here is your participation rates for boys and girls in the fall sports. We broke it down. There's 317 high school athletes, 49% participated this past fall, 47 for middle school athletes. We had 27 seniors this season, 18 boys and 9 girls. So I thought our fall numbers were pretty good across the board. One big concern I think right now is our modified football. So we're still, you know, our numbers are going to be, you know, we're light, but we have a plan in place to make sure that we can keep that program, you know, sustain that program over time. Otherwise, you know, I think we've been pretty solid across the board with our participation numbers, especially in the fall. And we offer so much for our student athletes. Just a quick season recap. I just basically listed some things. One of the key highlights, I believe, you know, I think, is our varsity cross country. The boys were Class D champions this year, and they competed in the state championship. They took 4th out of 11 teams throughout New York State. That's the highest we've ever placed. Owen Powers became the first cross country runner to qualify for the New York State Federation. If you're not familiar with cross country, the federation race brings everybody together. So that's Catholic schools, private schools, and the public schools up at Bowdoin Park. So he had an opportunity to participate in that, and that's by invite only. So that was something special. That was one of our first athletes to ever do that. So that was a highlight to our season there. Our varsity tennis team had a great season as well. One thing about the tennis that we're seeing is our numbers are starting to increase in tennis. So it's been a nice surprise over the last few years.
Cross country, Ashley, I just highlighted her because she did qualify for the state championship as well. Winter sports, basically, as you know, we do offer, we offer 3 sports. We have basketball for boys and girls, and we have track for boys and girls. So these are our numbers across the board. One of the things that we made a decision on kind of right in the beginning of the year for modified basketball is our numbers were low. So we were able to work with Garrison to merge with them. And I think it benefited our athletes in particular because it created a larger opportunity. I think Garrison had 9 or 10. We had 6. So we discussed what would be a benefit for both teams. So we brought them together and they competed, as we've done with other sports, but this is the first time we've done girls basketball. So it was a positive experience for our girls and to keep them interested in basketball. Our JV girls basketball numbers were a struggle this year. We did start with about 10. We had 4 girls, just decided not to participate anymore. So we ended up with 6. So again, we're working to increase those numbers for the girls in the winter season for basketball, especially. So this just wanted to kind of highlight a couple things. You see a low percentage of middle school because we do just offer for middle school right now, boys and girls basketball. If there were an interest in the future, I'm not saying next year because I didn't put it in the budget. But if, a possibility is if there is an interest, there is modified track that's offered in the area. So if there is an interest there, if we need to look at, looking for more participation, that might be a possibility in the future. So I didn't really see the interest for next year, but I think it might peak in the next few years. Just something to think about. Winter season recap. Our varsity boys basketball, we're league champions again. I believe I should have looked it up, but I've been 5 or 6 in a row, right? Yeah. So and this year, this is coming off a season last year, as you know, it was very successful. So it was a rebuilding year and had a successful year doing that. Our girls basketball were Class C finalists. They actually beat a team in the semifinals that beat them twice this year. So that was quite an accomplishment for them. So they started to come together towards the end of the year. And then our indoor track, for the first time in school history, we were able to win the league championship for boys and girls. And then we had the 4x200 relay team qualify for the state championship down at, so the state championship is at Ocean Breeze in Staten Island, which was quite an experience. And then they ended up taking 5th, which I'll get to that later. They ended up taking 5th place in the state, and then Owen Powers qualified for an intersectional relay, which means he competed with other teams in Section 1 as a relay unit down at the state tournament. So it was quite an experience for them. For spring, obviously we started spring sports yesterday. When I wrote this, it was 155. As of today, it's 158. Varsity and JV students are registered to participate in the spring season. So our numbers are pretty solid across the board for all of our spring sports. Our modified season will begin next Monday. Again, we're going to solidify those rosters by the end of this week. Team accomplishments for fall sports, as I mentioned before, we're Class D champions in cross country, 4th out of 11 teams. Went through the league champion class and all these. I just kind of reviewing kind of our highlights from previous slide. Big thing here is our Scholar Athlete. If you're not familiar with Scholar Athlete, is recognition with a certificate of the team's average of GPA for 75% of the roster must be greater than or equal to a 90. This means you take 75% of your roster and average their GPA. So this year we are perfect. We're perfect across the board for all sports for Scholar Athlete. Last year we were perfect. Okay, so our spring teams have a little bit of pressure on them to fulfill that. So hopefully that takes place, which I'm anticipating that's going to happen. So credit, as you know, we have the spring musical coming up. Many of our athletes are involved in that. So they're involved in a lot of things, have a lot of other things going on, and academics is still a priority. So that's something that we should give them credit for. Just some quick little things that happen throughout the year. Every year around homecoming, we have our Hall of Fame induction ceremony, which is a great weekend. Starts with with them being recognized at the football game at halftime, and then we have a little brunch on Sundays, just to recognize people. The nomination period ends April 1st. So if you know, if people haven't nominated anybody, that's up, coming up in a couple weeks. We have our end of the year athletic awards. This past year we had it on, we're gonna have it this year on June 4th. It's a great night because we bring everybody together. All the fall, winter, spring sports, and we recognize all of our varsity athletes. One of the big things that we started this year is, you see there's a framed H, so every senior gets the letter, you know, their varsity letter H with their name on it. That's something that started last year. And then we give out all section plaques, all league plaques, and coaches give a little quick presentation of their season. So it's a nice culminating activity for, you know, the whole year. And the Booster Club does a great job bringing in food. We had an ice cream truck last year. They're going to do that again this year, which was a big hit because it was really hot last year. So it was a great end to the year for all of our athletes. Just to step into physical education real quick, just kind of what our expectations are at each level. I did present this slide last year, saying it's similar to, you know, I just kind of want to give an update of, you know, these are the things that are taking place. What I did add this year is just areas of focus. This past February, they did Fitness February. So grades 6 through 12, the middle school focus was on cardio, kickboxing, agility work, and dumbbell work. The high school focus was on circuit training, high intensity interval training. And then the elementary classes did a marathon activity. So I don't know if you've ever seen it, but the kids do a marathon activity. They run, you know, the phys ed teacher set up a little course for them to run around in the gym. So this year, the elementary school classes ran 446 total miles in grades K through 5. So it's a little competition for them to do. It's exciting. Hiking, our middle school classes this year, new trails included Pelton Pond, Hubbard Lodge Loop, and other areas of Fonstalk Park. And then this past year, we had 2 student teachers. We had one in the fall, and then we have one in the spring who's ending this week through SUNY Cortland. And it's nice to have SUNY Cortland reach out to us to have them, you know, work with our kids and our teachers. So hopefully that continues because it's a great experience. One of the things that we do recognize is the teachers come up every month with each one comes up with a student of the month. I'm going to get to it in a minute, but what we added to outside the cafeteria is a monitor to kind of highlight athletics. So this is one of the things that we added to it. So this is posted throughout the day. So when people come down to lunch or they're down there for an activity, they can see that it's scrolling through. Just a quick little update about health. We're examining our health curriculum. Obviously, our current year state standards haven't been updated since 1996. We're collecting curriculum information from surrounding districts. Our health teacher attends collegial circle with other health teachers from surrounding districts once a month through P&W BOCES. So again, anytime that standards are outdated, you know, we're always looking, you know, the state currently in 23-24 did update the phys ed standards after 20-something years. So I'm assuming health's going to be next. But we are currently following, obviously, our New York State standards and doing all those things. But again, it doesn't hurt for us to, and in talking to our health teacher, the collegial circle is a big help talking to surrounding districts. So it's been something that he's really worked hard on. Just a quick little thing that takes place throughout the year. Obviously, in the high school, if you've been in the high school, we have senior posters for each season. If you notice in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little emblem there that's of the Haldane Booster Club. So the Booster Club pays for those posters. And at the end of the season awards night, the seniors are able to take their senior posters home with them, which is nice. Signing day, what we did last year, we had Division I and Division II. Anybody we take care of that in November. Division III, we take care of that in April, early May. So that'll be coming up soon. So again, that's something we do in the gym. We send it out to the parents. We invite family to come in, and then up in the high school, we do have some little recognition parts of team pictures. Just a quick little piece of what we do for our coaches. One of the things we did add this year is every coach was given, Haldane Blue Devils, like athletics,
Lanyard.
lanyard, thank you. A lanyard. We do have a coaches meeting every season, and within that coaches meeting, we have a coaches folder that pretty much outlines everything that they need to have for the season that they can refer to. And then this year, we were able to provide some gear for our coaches as well. So it's been a nice thing. Again, as I said, the monitor, these are some things that take place that we post on social media, on our monitor throughout the year. So just, hoping to give our recognition to our student athletes throughout the season. And do we have any questions?
That would explain why my kids' health curriculum is the same health curriculum I had. I'm like, well, that's 1990. That is amazing. Let's go state. And
Nothing has changed.
The bodies don't change. The bodies don't change.
just saying. Wow.
That's great.
It's very impressive athletics program.
On the merges, we saw hockey, we've seen the ability to
Swimming,
kind of
that's
put
swimming.
swimming. We've been able to put some students into positions where they could be successful through these mergers. Is that something that you see going forward is a way for us to kind of ensure that students have these opportunities? Is this something that, as we looking down through the years, we probably won't have enough hockey kids for a team or enough swimmers for a team, but this is something that's really working out.
Yes, I feel it is working out because you do have, hockey, swim, boys tennis is another one where we merge with Brewster. So the key with a merger is obviously the other school has to be accepting of you.
Right.
Unfortunately, in some situations with swim, especially what you're finding is the section changed some rules about mergers in that you're not allowed, like if you have more than one team, like basically if you have a two-team merger, you're not eligible to win a league title or to advance to win a section championship. So they've kind of threw some loopholes in there, but there is a way for us to work around that. So that we're still considered, we can still follow a team, it's called a shadow, but we would just be the Haldane team. But if, does that make sense? So we shadow their schedule. It would still be the same situation. It's just instead of it being a merged program, we would shadow the other team and they would represent Haldane instead of for example, for boys swim would be Peekskill. So we would shadow their schedule and the coach would still coach our kid, but that's how, it's.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when teams are successful with a merger, which you can understand, is when you have multiple schools merging, sometimes it gives you an advantage over other schools that don't merge. So that's kind of, I think, the direction that the section took on. But we'll find ways to make that work.
And parents have to provide transportation, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And as the interest in tennis sort of expands and contracts, I know that the ongoing conversation is about our own, the quality or the availability of our courts. I think, does that account for why a merger makes a little bit more sense? Do we find that it's easier for our players to say be in Brewster and modified?
Oh, so I mean, if we had the interest,
Right.
if we had 8 to 10 boys interested in tennis, then we would pursue the possibility of providing a team.
Right.
That's pretty much how we look at it.
Yeah. What's the, what do you see as I don't know, one thing that we're always talking about is enrollment, I suppose, is being a concern here. What do you see as the sort of chief obstacle to sort of the sustaining the programs over time? I'm just curious I'm sure it's something that you think about, something you
we think about it all the time.
Yeah.
Especially, we're going to be highly impacted at modified and JV levels. That's where we're going to be. We're going to have to make a lot of decisions. Like we're for JV softball right now, we're in that situation. So, we're taking this 3 or 4 days to figure out what we're going to do if we're going to have enough numbers for JV softball. So it's, we look at what our sign up, what it's going to be, what's in 5th and 6th grade right now, because our 7th and 8th grade numbers are a little low, but what do we have down in the lower, lower levels that are participating locally. So, it's unfortunately those JV and modified numbers, it's something we've always got to examine every season.
And being really, really nice and good to your little league partners, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Right. We rely heavily on it.
Laura, thank you very much.
And your travel team coaches.
That's what I'm hearing.
That was great. I was really impressed the number of kids who run indoor track.
Oh, yeah, this was the
'Cause
largest, I think this was the largest team we've
Because
had.
that is a hard
Good point.
sport because we don't have a track. And those kids are out running, I mean, they're
On my
running
block,
in
on
the
Division
cold.
Street.
No, I remember when he was running, they run all over the place.
And meets are late
Yeah.
too.
And it's
Meets
great
runs
to
early.
see the exciting, and they have to go far for the meets, into the city and,
I'd have to think this had to be one of the largest teams, I think, in a long
who
time.
is the coach for
Indoor.
that? Is that?
AJ
It is
McConville,
AJ.
he's great. He does a great job preparing them to compete.
That's great.
Yeah.
Really nice. Good.
Thank you.
much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, both of you all, that's great. All right, so now we're gonna move into a budget presentation to continue a conversation we've had over the last couple of meetings about the budget. So thanks to Catherine and Mr. Albano for the work to put together this new presentation.
So this is our third budget presentation. We're going to move through the topics that we covered in past presentations rather quickly, but don't hesitate to stop me if you have a question or something needs clarification. The goals were established at the very onset. You've seen them numerous times. This is just a summary of all of the priorities that were identified. The internal budget development process really started late December. Went through January, February. Catherine has had ongoing meetings with all of the administrative team, information coming up from department chairs to our administrators to Catherine's office. And these were a lot of the priorities that were identified and we thought could be supported in the budget, and they are currently included. Enrollment, no real changes, except I will just point out once again that we're excited. Pre-K has 17 registered, so we do think it's very likely we would hit that maximum of 18. It would be perfect if we had 18 registered, we don't have to turn anyone away, and then we could access the full amount of state aid associated with that. At the middle school, no change to enrollment. Again, just looking at the sections by combining reducing one section of 6th grade, keeping it in 3 sections. Currently in 5th grade, it's in 3 sections. It will enable some of our middle school staff to teach some high school assignments, and it will reduce some 6th period teaching assignments, which is helpful. When a teacher teaches 6 periods, that's really demanding, and it takes away prep time, collaborative planning time, so we do see this as a plus. Not just on the financial side, but on our pedagogy and planning. At the high school, we also have a few changes from last time. Julia, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think we have a few additional Garrison students entering 9th grade. I think we're up by 3. I think we also have a Garrison student that will be attending 10th grade. So the numbers increased by 4 total, and you could see the totals there are almost identical year over year, 2 less students. Here, just a breakdown of, and you've seen this before, of all of the staffing. Our proposal is to keep all levels of staffing the same. The only thing I will point out, you do see a 1 plus in the administrative column and 1 minus in the teaching faculty column. That really is, we're talking about a staff member who currently is a teacher on special assignment, who has been handling all of our technology needs. I'll move on to this slide, which explains it a bit more. The work has evolved. We talked a little bit about AI earlier, but cybersecurity, this role 10 years ago looked very different. So the person really has taken on the role of a director of technology and is also willing to take on chief information officer reporting responsibilities next year. So the recommendation is to reduce one teaching, keep the same person in the role, but give the appropriate title. It is just about budget neutral. There may be a few extra dollars, but the person also will be here in the summer, more days than in the past, and those summer days are really needed. That's when a lot of the intense technology work has to occur to have a smooth opening to the school year. Property tax cap.
Okay,
I'll
back to
turn it
me.
over to my partner,
Okay.
Catherine.
So as we discussed numerous times, the allowable tax levy this year for the district is 3.38%, which would reflect a budget to budget increase of just about $770,000. We developed a spending plan based on a 2.8% tax levy, which equates to a budget to budget increase of $637,000, which is $132,000 less than the maximum allowable. We have identified existing needs that could be addressed if we do choose to go to the allowable tax levy limit. Again, just quick on foundation aid. Right now, we're projected with the governor's proposal to receive a 2% increase, about $58,000. And as Mr. Albano mentioned earlier, the details coming out of the Senate and Assembly's One House budget proposals, we do believe this to be an accurate estimate, if not a little low, and hopefully we could end up with a little more revenue in foundation aid. On the flip side, we do have a decrease, unfortunately, in our expense-based aid. These are calculations based on the actual expenditures from designated programs and services from the previous year. And we are seeing a decrease in our building aid, transportation aid, BOCES aid, and private excess cost aid, which is the decrease of about $161,000. This is primarily due to decreased expenses in those areas, also compiled with a slight decrease in our enrollment. There has been some discussion over the last 2 weeks about federal funding in the news. So we wanted to just present to you what this year's federal funding looks like. Our Every Student Succeeds Act funding, which is our Title I, II, and IV funding for this year, is Title I is $79,000, Title II is $15,000, and Title IV is $10,000. We also are receiving the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act funding with our 611, it's almost $227,000, and 619 is almost $7,000. I don't have lunch numbers for this year because it's going to be based on actual lunches that are served for the year. So I looked back to what we received from federal funding from last year's lunch funding, and it was $110,000, which shows that we do receive about $450,000 of federal funding. I also, just to show how we are funded right now, I did a review of our fund balance. As you know, at the end of the year, if there is income over expenses, anything that is left over can go into our fund balance. We think of it as savings accounts. Most of our fund balance is restricted, meaning it's been put aside for certain uses and it can only be used for those purposes. So on the left, I just have a summary of all of our currently restricted fund balances, with a note that our capital reserve right now has $1 million in it, but we have allocated that $1 million to the capital project. So at the end of the year, that will have been removed out of but currently it sits in fund balance. At the bottom, you see assigned appropriated of $645,000. That's the money that we put towards balancing the budget each year that allows us to directly go and use fund balance if we have any unanticipated expenses. We also have our assigned unappropriated. That's money that has been reserved from the previous year for outstanding encumbrances at the end of the year. So it's expenses that were incurred, but we had not yet received the invoices for the year. So it was paid during this year. And then we have our unassigned. School districts are one of the only government funds that are held to a standard of only being able to reserve a certain amount. School districts can hold 4% of their following year's budget in unassigned. We currently are able to do that each year. This is money that, again, in the case of an emergency, we have the ability to go into our unassigned fund balance and pay for any expenses that come up that were not budgeted for and are outside the contingencies that are built into our budget. So I did prepare our key figures. This year's budget was $29.2 million. If we go to our maximum tax levy on the right hand side of 3.38, it would be a budget to budget increase of $1 million. And if we stick with 2.8, it would be 945,000. So our budget to budget increase would either be 3.24% or 3.69%. And our tax levy increase would either be 638 or 770 based on what we decide tonight. Again, here is the proposed spending plan for the district. Using a allowable tax levy of 2.8%. Again, it starts with our rollover budget, and what our rollover budget doesn't mean that everything that we spent in the current year, we automatically roll over and say we're spending the exact amounts again. I take it as a starting point and I roll everything forward. The first thing I do is I put in all the mandatory increases like salary adjustments that are contractually related. I flatten out any expenses that are consistently either over budget or under budget. If there's been one-time expenses placed in a yearly budget, I pull that money back unless that it's been requested again to become rollover. And so that's where I start the process with what do we need to meet our obligations and clean up any accounts and remove any unnecessary spending. So I take from that the requests from the administration team and match it to our goals. And as you'll see, we've talked about it a few times. It's the new ELA curriculum, MTSS software, implementing pre-K, another increase to special education funding, increasing the amount that the school can contribute to our students for their field trips. We've had generous support from the Haldane School Foundation for all these years, but we would like to try to take some of it on in our school budget. Obviously, we can't fund some of the larger trips, but we're hoping to at least contribute a little bit more towards every trip that the students take. We are going to do part of our air conditioning this year. We're taking all the air conditioning in the classrooms that have consistently reached over 88 degrees. We are planning to have air conditioners in those rooms this school year. The increase in the budget for next year are for those classrooms that are not dealt with this spring that consistently reach 82 degrees. We also, as we've talked about, a transportation study, and then we did have a teacher resign, and we do feel that with that teacher, we will replace the teacher, but there will be some salary breakage with the hiring of the different step that will probably come in for that teacher. And then as Mr. Albano talked about, with the with the schedule realignment and the reduction in class sizes, it does appear that there will be less of a need for some sixth period assignments. And so that is a reduction to our budget. And that is where we came up with what our spending plan would be for a 2.8% tax increase. We did then say, what if we go to the maximum, that would allow us to spend an additional $132,000. Some ideas that have been brought up over the last few weeks. We did receive the results of our energy study that the district paid for in 2024 and is also referenced, and one of the items is also referenced in our building condition survey, and that would be upgrading to LED lighting. So we do have in there a possible addition of LED lighting to all the main building, the high school, and if available, the district office and the Mabel Merritt. We were informed by NYSERDA, who did our study, that the anticipated return on investment of that would be in over 6 years. It would pay back for itself in energy savings. We did meet with Mr. Cunningham and Mr. McNeil from facilities to talk about some outstanding projects that they would like to see done. And one of them was a overhaul of our gymnasium with some painting and some floor refurbishment. And then we also did talk about the idea in the budget is some auditorium upgrades. And as we all know, we need a lot of them, so we could put some additional budget funds to that project. We were asked about the building condition survey and the list of projects that has been hanging outstanding on that. Our large scale building and site work recommendations are primarily included in phase 1 of our capital project. We have a lot of smaller fixes already in progress. And there are a lot of recommendations for the district office that we don't feel at this time would be our priority in the district, because we don't know how the district office and the Mabel Merritt building will be used in the future as we have additional space in the high school. So those were just some ideas that we had if we did want to go to 3.38. And I think at this point, it would just be open for discussion as to what the board would like us to pursue. If you want me to just finish where we are, I can just remind you of, we do have Proposition 2, which is our vehicle purchase. We had been estimating at $175,000 for the beginning of the budget season. We did receive information from our bus company that due to the potential for tariffs and the increase on costs, they will not guarantee that they will honor the estimate that they gave us. It will be based on what the cost is for the bus at the time that our bus is built. Right now, a lead time on a bus can be up to a year, so we really don't know. We spoke with legal counsel, and they recommended that we increase the maximum estimated cost up to $205,000. We also have a proposition that we're putting on the ballot to renew our capital reserve fund. As we're using the $1 million, that's the end of the old capital reserve fund, so we need to reauthorize it. So we are recommending that we reauthorize it for up to $3 million to be put in savings and have the fund available for the next 10 years. And that would just allow us that as we finish this capital project, possibly start another, or want to work on the projects on the facilities improvement plan, we would have some money put aside for savings. This would not have any impact on the taxpayers. And then again, as you heard at the beginning of the meeting, we are obligated to include the Butterfield Library proposition on our May ballot. And so the funds will go directly to Butterfield. They are levied as part of our tax bills to our taxpayers, but it comes in and it's immediately paid out to the Butterfield Library. And again, just a summary of our propositions. And we're getting close. Our next meeting will be on our estimated revenue. And then we would hope to adopt, well, we have to adopt the budget on April 22nd.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for, just that presentation honestly was very, the fact that you could give it so fluently and so efficiently speaks to what I know has been a tremendous amount of work that, as you mentioned, has gone back on for months. But I know that even over the past couple of weeks, there's been additional work. And I know I speak on behalf of the board when I thank you so much for everything that you've done so far. Catherine came back, right? That's what we asked. We said,
something changed, not in the major budget. Just for some perspective, on that bus. So that conversation, the number that initially was going to go out was what?
175.
175. And the new number is up to 205. And you're the numbers person. What's that percentage equate to roughly?
Oh, glad I need a calculator. I can't do that. Somebody.
Oh, I'll do it. 25. Right? Here, I'm looking at I know.
I would almost say-
Isn't that fluency?
I would say roughly
No, that's-
25%.
Huh?
25%.
So looking at a significant. So here, you know, we got to deal with a company to buy a bus. Right away, they say, hey, boom, tariffs are gonna hit this, and here's your new number. And that happened in the past 2 weeks.
It happened, yeah, I don't have the date of the email, but we did just receive that email from the bus company in the last 2 weeks that they were going to no longer promise to honor it. And again, it will be based on
Yeah.
the timeline of the bus. The one thing that we can remember about our vehicle proposition, that number, although significant, will not change the impact on the taxes because we pay off our previous.
Oh, for sure.
So it is, although it is an increase, it does not have a tax impact to increase it to that. And if we are able to get numbers prior to borrowing, we do not have to borrow the amount that we asked for. It's just, it allows us to, if we find out that our bus will be that much more expensive.
Yeah, the concern I have is it's a bellwether or a barometer, right? So, boy, that was right in this conversation. So it's just wild to hit. I do really appreciate the work that you've put into this though, and I do recognize it. And it's about a 0.5% difference from 2.8 to 3.3. And, but still an increase at 2.8. And it also, you also saw savings. Was that original savings? Did that exist on the first one? Right. On that breakage. Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
And the other thing is, as we approach April 1st and get the final state runs, and if we do get to our maximum number of, because I budgeted for 15 preschoolers, so the numbers are still, once we hit our actual target of what we want to do, we can still massage how we might be able to use the revenue or any savings that we potentially find.
No, that's great. Thank you.
And one thing to think about, sort of, if we go back to the slide that talks about the potential increases to meet the levy at 3.38. The projects that you listed there, thinking of the capital referendum work and getting the new superintendent up to speed and all the other projects that we have in place, do we have the bandwidth? Is it to do all of those projects and then some? I mean, that's something, right, to keep in mind too.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that question. You have a very ambitious plan for the district going forward. So I know someone's up for the challenge.
I was ready.
Surprise.
But a $28.4 million capital project that will really ramp up. Next year, this time, you'll be preparing for shovels in the ground, construction, starting. And that, there's our director of facilities and transportation, but also our principals are impacted, certainly the business office, you have to start doing bond anticipation notes. It's a very complex project and you do need to stay focused on it. And stick to your timeline. Like even bidding, you want to ensure that you're bidding early. That's how you get the best prices. If things are delayed and you bid late in the school year, then prices tend to go up because most of this schoolwork does occur over the summer. So there's a lot of things you need to be focused on and strategic about. I just would also mention, we also have this potential transition to electric buses. The EPA grant is still a possibility. We've requested 4 buses. And again, you would use the EPA grant money, the NYSERDA money. Now, tariffs may drive up the cost of EV buses. I would expect that to happen if the tariffs are implemented and remain in place. But still, remember combining the 2 grants was probably about $320,000. So, even if e-buses went from $350 to $380, it still might make sense and be something that's feasible for the district moving forward. But that's also an enormous undertaking. Transitioning, there's charging stations, there's infrastructure, that is a big transition. So you have, you know, and again, I wish I had more definitive answers for you now. We're not gonna find out about the EPA grant till May. So this budget has to be finalized, but that is a real possibility. And then, you know, going back to, you know, these initiatives too are, you know, there's a good list of high quality things that will improve, you know, students' experiences and improve the district, you know, some of the facilities and of course, new programs. But yeah, there is a pretty ambitious